Good evening. Welcome to the April 30th, 2026 special Northampton School Committee meeting to deliberate and vote on a superintendent for the Northampton Public Schools. I'm Jean Louise Shara, the chair of the school committee, and I will be presiding this evening. This meeting is being held remotely on Zoom pursuant to the modification of the state's open meeting law for the pandemic and in person here in the community room at JFK Middle School. And this meeting and all participating will be audio and video recorded. And I'll begin by asking our clerk, Cassie, to please call the roll of school committee.
Let me hit the record.
Recording in progress.
Okay, ready. Mayor Shara.
Here.
Member Bartoli.
Present.
Member Weisenfreund. Here. Member Montgomery Tomaclo.
Here.
Member Stein.
Here.
Member Martin.
Here.
Member Mahoney.
Here.
Member Reese.
Here.
Member Jewell.
Here.
Member Sanders Sullivan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. First, I want to again thank the three candidates who we interviewed, Thomas Dennehy, Annie Azarloza, and Bethany Silver, for their interest and all of the time and the care that they gave to this process. I also want to again thank the search committee for their work and for presenting us with three excellent candidates. So before we move to deliberation, first, we're going to briefly review the community's survey results. Thank you to all who took it and added your thoughts. There are about 70 responses. Huge thanks to Cassie for doing remarkable work to turn it around and get the responses to us today. And Vice Chair Bartoli is going to give an overview of the survey results.
Thank you. So this overview is primarily designed to show to the public, as the members of the body have already received this document. Can you bring it up for me on the screen share? Because that is a part of Zoom I'm not familiar with.
Sure. Cassie, are you?
I'm trying to fix Member Sanders Sullivan's camera.
Okay.
Share.
Yeah, if someone can
Okay.
share it, that's a part of Zoom I'm not so savvy around.
Oh, no, I mean, Robbie and I can share.
Oh,
Cassie.
Oh, I see.
somebody is sharing the
Great.
results. So whoever's
there we
doing
go.
that, thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, there were about 70 respondents to the data, and we asked that respondents score the candidates on a scale of 1 to 5, and you can see the results for the three candidates. We have Ms. Azarloza first, Dr. Silver second, and then Dr. Dennehy third. Give me a moment. This is challenging with the microphone, excuse me. I'll give everyone a moment just to go through them. And Cassie, if you don't mind just scrolling down. Oh, Tiffany, thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we get? Okay.
And as you'll see, I'm not going to go into any analysis of the data or any descriptions of it. I'm just going to give you the opportunity to look at the results and then tell you a little bit more about other data that was collected. So if Tiffany, if you could go on to the next section. So we also asked that respondents familiarize us with their role in the community, and we received the largest number of responses from caregivers, followed by Northampton residents, and then followed by educators. So we did get a variety of different groups. Unfortunately, the numbers weren't big enough to do significant analysis vis-a-vis the different subgroups that we looked at. You'll see later that we were able to look at caregivers and educators and how they ranked the candidates, but that was all that we found. And then if you can go on to the next section, please. We also asked that respondents give us a sense of their racial ethnic identity, and these are the results that we received. The entire group of people polled preferred English. And then if you go down, you'll see the two sets of results. Do they fit into the entire screen? I can't quite tell. They do. Great. Okay. So here you're able to see how the candidates were ranked, first by caregivers and second by educators. And then I believe that is all.
Yep.
So it was a pretty brief survey, but we really did want to be able to gather community feedback. And because we ran the process in-house, we were very much moving through the steps as efficiently as we could, given the staffing that we had. And this is what we've got. And this will also be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments about the survey? Any? Okay.
I do wish that we could have collected data in regards to which schools were being represented, and just a little more information on whether the folks who are leaving comments and stuff, if they attended in person, if they met with the candidates, all of that extra stuff.
Oh, and I apologize. There were a series of comments at the end of the document, so maybe if you'd like to put those back up, people can look at them while we're asking questions. But 18 people left comments.
There are a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot.
See a lot of reading and scrolling.
Maud has her hand up.
That? Oh, pardon. Yes.
Yeah, I guess I just want to say that it is a very, very small number of respondents. So I would really, and we also received quite a number of emails that were very, very specific in their feedback, supporting one candidate over another candidate. So I would just really encourage us to be cautious in interpreting this as this is what the community wants, given that there were only 70 responses.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. So there was also some interest expressed in conducting a straw poll before deliberation and voting. This is something that we had done 3 years ago. And Member Martin has volunteered to facilitate that. I'm also going to ask that we adopt a voting procedure, and Attorney Taylor sent an email to everyone that outlines a process for voting. So would we like to do the straw poll first, and then?
Can I ask one question before? Just, this is around references from, reference checks from HR, if those have been conducted and what?
No, so that they would do those checks after so the motion that we'll make to vote for a superintendent will be contingent on having a satisfactory background check and that process. Okay, so straw poll first, and then we'll vote on a voting procedure? Yeah? Okay, Member Martin.
Right, so this is just a slight modification from what was done in 2023, where, Cassie, if you could go around, I'm going to move over to that blackboard over there and write up the candidates, the finalists' names, and Cassie, if you then could just go call on each member, and each member just list their top choice of the 3 that we have.
Can I ask a question? Mm-hmm. I'm just curious how you decided that Member Martin would run this and that we would run this. Just out of transparency. I mean, I don't object to it, but I'm just, when did you have that conversation? And
A couple members had mentioned they were interested in having a straw poll. Member Martin had sent an email outlining what had been done 3 years, actually very clearly, having watched the meeting 3 years ago, saying this was the process that was done in the past. We can take a vote if we want to have a straw poll. We can.
yeah, I'd like to take a vote on whether we want to do a straw poll, because it just seems like everything should be open deliberation, including our process.
All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we start our deliberation on this process with a straw poll.
Okay, motion's made by Member Martin, seconded by Member Reese. Deliberation on this, yeah?
I'm just wondering if Member Martin or anyone else could give sort of the arguments for why using a straw poll to begin the deliberations would be a good idea. I can imagine many ideas. I'm just for everyone here, you'd sort of understand whatever this email was that made the argument.
I mean, essentially, it was having watched a couple times in recent week, given that we weren't sure how we were going to do this, I'm like, well, what happened 3 years ago when this happened? And it seemed to work well then. You were there, but you may or may not remember. It seemed like to start with a sense of where we were was helpful to folks at that time. we might not feel that same way tonight, but to me, that's what it looked like, how that was helpful last time, to begin with a sense of where people were. And then the process before, which we haven't talked about yet, was then people went around and had 2 minutes to talk about, like, why. What was their thinking on that person, which we can do or modify.
In the deliberation?
In the,
Or with the
after
straw
after the straw poll is tallied.
Oh.
And then have that go around. Last time it was, there was clarity about that around one candidate. There may or may not happen tonight with that. So we'll have to figure out what to do if there's not.
Yes.
So, I mean, kind of building on that question, just more specifically, what are the advantages, do you think, of a straw poll? Is it to establish a baseline where everybody is so that we can think about how we want to vote? Or is it to take a temperature?
Yeah, exactly that.
For what reason?
To get a sense of where we are, and are we aligned, are we not aligned? That might guide where we go with our process.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we could potentially avoid spending time talking about candidates that aren't on anybody's list if that happens. So it could potentially, we could focus our energy on the candidates that are top of our list.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? So,
Point of privilege?
yep.
This,
All right, we're going to recess.
practice for jury trials.
All right, we're in recess. Okay, we are back. And was there any further discussion before a vote? Yes.
So when we did preliminary search, we did a straw poll, but that was only after we'd already had conversations about the candidates. It wasn't just a blind straw poll because we didn't want anyone to just like feel like they couldn't talk. And honestly, I don't see that there's going to be any, there's 3 candidates, there's 10 of us. Everybody's going to show up at least once, most likely. So I just think it's going to take time away from the discussion that we need to have about the candidates.
Okay. Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Did you, with their straw poll, did you do one candidate or top 2, or what did that look like?
So first round, it was give us your top 3 to 5. But like I said, we'd read all and had briefed it, and then we talked about them and moved them forward or not. And then semifinals, it was informal after the interviews, like like what did you think? And then after the last set of interviews, we did a straw poll and was like, okay, it's non-binding, but who are we thinking of moving forward? And then officially, the last meeting, we voted on who to move forward. But yeah, this was after, it wasn't without having any discussion. It was after we'd had discussion at every level.
I'm wondering if people have an alternative proposal to doing this that they would like to put forward.
So we're a deliberative body. We should just start talking. Everybody should have a top choice. You name your top choice, and then you talk about why, or if there's somebody you actually don't want, then why not? Because like that, like we haven't had a chance to say like, oh, like we have 19 questions. We haven't talked about how any of them have answered it. We could even go question by question if we wanted to say like, okay, let's look at question number 1. What did you think about their question about Northampton? We did that because some of them, like, honestly, if you can believe it or not, flubbed the first question. So like, there are ways to have this discussion, but it needs to happen before we do any type of voting. And I actually don't care. I would go question by question, or I would have everybody talk about who, their process of selecting their top candidate.
Any further discussion? There's a motion on the floor. Do you have to conduct a straw poll?
I mean, I actually feel like I would withdraw that. If people are objecting, I feel fine about withdrawing the motion and entering into deliberation. That feels fine to me.
Yes, member.
Could I do a friendly amendment and ask if the straw poll could have 2 people?
It wouldn't be a friendly amendment.
Okay.
It would have to be an amendment.
An amendment.
Or it could be withdrawn and you can make a motion.
I don't know what the process is to withdraw. Did I just withdraw?
And I'd like to make a motion to have Member Martin do a straw poll again, because I really support this process, and I think it'll get us a sense of where we are.
Is there a second? Okay, motion's made by Member Bartoli, seconded by Member Sanders-Sullivan. We are back to where we were. All right, any further discussion?
Can I ask a question? Member Stein, last time, like going back 3 years, when you all did the straw poll and stuff, did you agree on a process before, or like what did that?
I can't remember if we agreed on a straw poll process, but we had agreed on a sort of rubric that we used, and sort of so the straw poll was a representation of how we scored them based on the rubric. So in some ways, you had more information to understand what the criteria that other folks were using to judge the answers that we had in the interviews. So that, I guess that would be the biggest difference. So there was like a rubric that had been developed that we were all, and there's interpretive differences about what elements of the rubric meant, but that was sort of grounding what was informing your straw poll choice.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call. This is motion.
Actually, may I add a point? Member Martin, you emailed us this afternoon with a request, and I really appreciated that request. And this is an attempt to honor the request that we engage in a process. So I would invite you to stand up for yourself and your convictions.
I just wanted us to have a process, and I thought it would strengthen us to have a process going in. It would have been great had we all decided that together, but we haven't had time to do that. I mean, that would be ideal. Sounds like that's what happened from my understanding last time.
So I'm going to remind you that this is a democracy, and there's always going to be disagreement. I think it's rare that we'll end up with unanimous decisions.
Sure.
I think it was the same, it might have been the same rubric and rating scale as the one that we have now. Do you remember?
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
that
I don't think
Cassie
it's
used that. We
different.
didn't discuss that this
Right.
time.
Yeah.
We discussed the questions.
Like what
This-
the UL used in the ad hoc.
Similar, yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Member Bartoli?
Yes.
Member Weisenfreund?
No.
Member Montgomery Tomako?
No.
Member Stein?
No.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Can you interrupt the process for a point of privilege? Yes?
Really like to be able to concentrate on what we're doing.
Can't hear you.
I would like to be able to concentrate on what we're doing as a group here, and there was no public comment this evening, so I don't,
Yes, there should be no commentary from there.
Do it. Fuck my free speech. Do it. I'm not leaving.
Let's continue.
Remember where you were?
Yep, I do. Member Mahoney?
Yes.
Member Reese?
Abstain.
Member Jewell?
No.
Sorry.
No.
Member Sainer Sullivan?
yes.
Mayor Shara?
No. Wasn't counting.
5 noes, 4 yes, 1 abstain.
Okay. So can we move on to adopting a voting process? So Attorney Taylor laid out a process. Did you all receive that? That she recommends that we adopt for the deliberation and then the vote. Is somebody prepared to move that process?
Can we say it out, like, before we say move it, it should be like read into the record, right?
Yeah, well, that's what the motion would be, but her recommendation would be to move that the school committee proceed to select a superintendent of schools among the final candidates by roll call vote as follows. 1, the chair shall call the roll, and each member shall state aloud the name of one candidate. 2, if a candidate receives a majority of votes cast on any call, that candidate shall be deemed selected. If no candidate receives a majority on the first roll call, the school committee shall proceed immediately to a subsequent roll call vote among all candidates. 4, this process shall continue with successive roll call votes until a candidate receives a majority. No candidate receives a majority after a certain number of ballots. We could set what number of ballots that would be. The school committee may, by majority vote, reopen deliberations or adopt an alternative voting method. Or continue to a subsequent meeting. Yes, Member Stein.
Are we allowed to deliberate on this question? Like, can I talk about whether or not we should adopt this, or do we have to wait till we have something?
We need to make a motion first, right?
I think it would be better if we made a motion and put something on the floor and then,
I make a motion to open discussion of how we want to vote this evening.
Second.
Okay, motion's made by Member Stein, seconded by Member Montgomery Tomaclo. Discussion? Yep, Member Stein.
I don't particularly have a problem with this suggestion. My main concern is more around how much deliberation we're going to have before the roll is called and votes are taken. And if we're not voting on a particular motion, like to hire X person, and then it gets voted, right, like we're going on,
Point of order, I believe you're off topic. Will you motion to open discussion, not to have the discussion?
I asked if the chair, if we should make a motion to have a deliberation about how we want to vote.
Right.
It
So
was
now we're
seconded.
deliberating about deliberating, is that the point?
That was the motion. And so my comments are directly related to the motion that I made and was seconded that we're now discussing.
Can you rule on that point of order?
I mean, I think we are now discussing how we're going to go about this.
I thought we were voting on whether or not we were going to discuss about how we go about this process.
I'd have to, Cassie, you'd have to go back and read the motion.
But you can have arguments about how you,
I mean, you could still deliberate on it.
What sounds to me is happening is that there's this like long-term filibuster so that we're not actually going to get to a vote on our candidates. That's what I'm hearing right now.
I think we need to. Figure
deliberating.
out the process and then go ahead and follow through with
I
it.
would just raise a point of personal privilege to not ascribe motives to people and what they're doing in this discussion and to actually talk about the ideas. Thank you.
Agreed. Please continue. Let's go.
So what I was trying to express was that when, the way this is currently set out, we would just effectively call a roll call, and then we would all say who we want, whoever gets a majority. That's one way to do it. I think there's arguments for it. Another way to do it would be to vote specifically on a particular candidate, right? So in the first case, if you don't get a majority, say it's 3 candidates split, however, it's not a majority, you would come back and then re-enter deliberation. I wonder if it would be faster if we just had motions on individual candidates. But there's merits both ways. I don't actually have a strong preference either way, but it's something I would like y'all to think about, whether we adopt this or we go through a more traditional process where someone makes a motion for X candidate, they either get it or they don't. And if they don't, then we go back, there's another candidate that gets proposed, voted on, et cetera. Both have merits.
I would recommend that we adopt what was laid out, but of course, everyone would have an opportunity to share their thoughts on all one or all candidates.
I agree with that.
Okay, so would someone like to make the motion to
There isn't one on the
There's a
floor.
motion
have to
on the
vote
floor.
for the,
to
Amend the motion on the floor.
To open discussion.
okay. So are we going to roll call on opening the discussion or?
I heard that the motion on the floor was to open a discussion of how we want to vote tonight, seconded by Member Montgomery Tomaclo.
I would make a motion to amend the motion on the floor to adopt the proposed voting procedure suggested to us by Attorney Taylor.
do you need a second? Second.
Okay, motion to amend has been made and seconded. Discussion on that, amending it to, as outlined by Attorney Taylor?
So just to clarify, what we're voting on now is the amendment to accept Attorney Taylor's voting recommendations. So then we have to vote on that. And then after we vote on that, we vote on his first, do we vote on your first motion?
We would vote on the whole thing.
We vote on the whole thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
if it gets amended.
So if it gets amended, okay, got it. So we need to vote on the amendment, and then if it gets amendment, we have to vote on it anyway, right? Okay, got it.
Okay,
Ready?
any further discussion? Okay,
Member Weisenfreund.
Abstain.
Member Montgomery Tomaclo.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Martin.
Yes.
Member Mahoney.
Yes.
Member Reese.
Yes.
Member Jewell.
Yep.
Member Sanders Sullivan.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Bartoli.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we're voting on Attorney Taylor's.
On the motion is amended to adopt what I outlined by Attorney Taylor
Okay.
as the process we'll use.
Member Montgomery Tamako.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Martin.
Yes.
Member Mahoney.
Yes.
Member Reese.
Yes.
Member Jewell.
Yep.
Member Sainer Sullivan.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Bartoli.
Yes.
Member Weisenfreund.
Abstain.
Okay. Motion passes.
Okay. So that is the process once we come to a vote. But in the meantime, we can open up deliberations. So I invite any or all to share your thoughts on the three candidates. Again, please keep in mind the recommendation from Attorney Taylor on how to frame it. And, yeah, go ahead, Member Stein.
I would move that the school committee proceed to select the superintendent of schools from the final candidates, Annie Azarloza, Thomas Danahy, and Bethany Silver, pursuant to the voting procedure adopted by the school committee, and further move that upon completion of this process and a determination of a majority choice, that the school committee offer the position of superintendent of schools to the selected candidate, contingent upon their successful completion of a background check and the negotiation and execution of an employment agreement acceptable to the school committee.
Second.
Motion's made by Member Stein, seconded by Member Montgomery Tomaclo. Okay. Who would like to share their thoughts?
Can you repeat what that motion was?
This is the second part of what Attorney Taylor had.
Yeah.
It's just sort of ensuring we have
Okay,
all
so
the
you listed
components.
all three names.
Yep,
Yeah.
all
Okay.
three names, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of email.
Yes. There were lots of emails. Yeah, Member Sainer Sullivan.
So we're in deliberation now.
Yes.
I'm happy to go first. I think we're really fortunate to have three strong candidates, and I was fortunate to be in on the first round. And some of my comments will draw from those first interviews also, so it's kind of just woven together in no particular order. I believe our community will get behind and thrive under each of these candidates. But Dr. Silver rose to the top for me, and a few things I'll mention that stood out for me. And really, these are small quotes from her. Helping all students be aware of the opportunities they have. Her efforts to bring in teachers of color, pathways to becoming a teacher. Part of that tapped people already working in after-school care who showed the desire to go further. Her response to crises, the community being alerted, the community with families finding out before kids use their phones. After a crisis, having an after-action review. She said the responses were not always kind, but usually respectful. Her budget process, working backward from the ideal 8% that she was working with by percentage points at a time, clearly pointing out what was lost with each percentage point. That she encourages her administrators and teachers to learn from other schools and sends teams. Her literacy support and the standards of writing response framework that they instituted, which showed improvement across the years, and her acknowledgement that it takes time to cohere and focus. Her legislative breakfasts, her understanding of Chapter 70 and the problem it causes in Massachusetts. She asked us in the first interviews if we have health clinics in our schools, and that she's had great success with that in the past, and that just feels like thinking big about our future here. Her her thoughts on using a public-facing data dashboard, especially with special ed, how info is collected and compiled and communicated with families. And also data dashboards for staff to ID strengths and gaps. She talked, I believe it was Tuesday night, about the math teacher looking at a chart who said that students were failing math because they couldn't read, and that we can learn a lot from the faculty. She wants us to be wise consumers and savvy judges when it comes to technology. She has concerns of privacy. She wants us to use our incredible human brains before we turn to AI. She's interested, or she said it's an interesting point in our human evolution. And she talked about students saying we end up talking to one another, which to me is the most basic thing that we need to be considering. Isolation equals anxiety. We need a manageable process for instituting whatever comes down the road in our schools for the cell phone ban. Portrait of a graduate starts at the elementary school level. Far more good is happening than we might realize in our schools, and that's what she came away with after visiting them. She wants norms around agenda planning and updates.
Thank you. Member Montgomery Tomaclo.
Just a quick question. Can we talk about what they said in our interviews as semifinalists?
It probably should not be talked about, the stuff that.
Okay.
I inquired, I thought we could.
Can't hear you.
I inquired about that, I thought we could, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you asked?
I asked the vice.
That was my mistake. I had understood that you were asking about notes as to what you were going to say, not what,
My notes that I took.
it was
in-
a misunderstanding.
Did you want to share thoughts, or was that your?
I mean, I can now. So, first, like I said, I'd like to thank the search committee, especially considering the passionate discussion that I'm not sure a lot of them have seen. I don't believe anyone in this room that was not on search committee understands how we do not have the options now that we had 5 years ago. People knew qualified educators that did not apply for this job because of the reputation that we got and because of the way we treat the admins that come, and because they didn't want to. What one of them described it as, Northampton is not where I want to be, but they didn't use nice words. So, having said that, I am never here to be popular. I'm here to do what I think is right for the students, and that is why Dr. Danahy is my choice. And why? Because, and I'm not going to talk about what he said in executive session, but I'm going to talk about what he said about communication. He was the only one that laid out his communication plan clearly and succinctly. He has his committees, he meets with them, and he sends out that information to after every meeting, and he listens and validates what people say. And he was the only one that, when talked about mentoring, talked about psychological safety and having outside coaching. One of the big issues in the district, and why we've had to look outside of the district for a number of years for admin, is because we do not have coaching, and we do not have people who feel like they can grow in this district beyond. They can grow, period. So Northampton should be growing leaders instead of importing them from out of state. And why did I say out of state? We had 2 candidates from Massachusetts. That was it. 2. Let's see. And I know that people didn't, the budget, he talked about I liked Dr. Silver's budget process. I'm a little scared of 3%, but I liked how he mentioned like his priorities that were equity commitments, legal obligations, what is the mission, what's the vision, and how do we get outcomes for all kids? What is our next year, what will make the next year powerful for students? How can we pool our resources in a way that we cannot be bleeding money? One of the conversations he had was about keeping out-of-district placements in-house and maybe looking into what that looks like. Because we have the talent, we just haven't had the framework set up for success for so many different people. And then like, also, I really, really actually liked his curriculum framework because we are currently having an issue with the ELA curriculum in the middle school, and we have a grant, and there are big feelings about it, and as there should be because teachers spend a lot of time on curriculum. And I like the idea that he pays teachers to come in the summer to work on curriculum so that they can align them horizontally and vertically, and that they can own the curriculum. And that, I feel like, would go a big way towards especially like dealing with the negative feelings that a lot of the teachers are having about feeling like they are forced to do curriculum from on high. And he also really was one of the few that talked about MTSS in terms of not just academic, but social and emotional components. It's not just an academic framework. It is about the social emotional learning that the children need.
Okay. Member Jewell.
Okay, so I've been thinking about what do we need as a district. We need transparency, which I think like when we were running for school committee too, almost all of us talked about the intense need for transparency. We need a leader who's going to lead. We need to prioritize building our community and building trust again, as we have said many times, and engaging students and families. We also need a leader who is willing to do things and do things differently if they need to be done, someone who is proactive and who is welcoming. And thank you to the ad hoc committee for giving us candidates who all spoke to those things multiple times. Everyone spoke about transparency and trust, building community. Every single one of them mentioned how important it is to get into compliance, which felt like such a relief. They all spoke to needing a better, earlier budgeting timeline, which I think we all agree on too, and we're really positive towards restorative practices. And I am putting in the name, however it goes. My top choice is Annie Azarloza, and primarily because I've been thinking about what is like one of the top priorities, and that is around family engagement. And she has a clear plan for that. She's curious, she's open to hearing from all stakeholders and wants to have conversations. This is something I've heard from the people who met with her at the meet and greets, and from teachers. She also really talked about needing to be, she said we got to get in compliance. And just stating that was really wonderful to hear. She had an emphasis on transparency and collaboration across all levels. She's skilled and comfortable with public speaking. Relationship building is one of the things she talked about in multiple different questions. She has a clear budget process, which is different from what we're used to. And it's one that's inclusive. She is experienced in implementing a cell phone ban, which we are on the horizon of doing. And inspiring and reinvigorating. I've heard from several of the leaders in our district how they feel like they will be a better leader because of her. And I know that she'll advocate for students and schools and actually know what is happening by being in the school buildings. And the other thing that is really important to me is listening to the experts. in our schools, and I know that our union leadership is very, they're advocating for Annie Azarloza too, and that feels really important for me as we're hiring an expert to take on our schools, that I listen to the experts who are in our schools right now.
Anybody else like to share?
Gotta get going.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I just need to say one thing, that I feel like we need to be able to participate in democracy with what Dr. Dennehy called a sense of psychological safety. And I just would like to invite that into the room to give us all strength that we can have a really civil discussion, even if we disagree. That said, I think the main words about thinking about what we needed as a district are stabilization, trust, transparency, and compliance. And I thought Annie Azarloza and Bethany Silver exemplified that for me. I also thought Tom Dennehy had a lot of wonderful things to offer. Both Azarloza and Silver rose to the top for me in addressing those with clarity and thoughtfulness and clear plans. I really love the energy and excitement that Annie brings, that teachers feel potentially like they would be inspired by working with her. And I love her directness and clearness, the way she talked about IEPs. We need to be in compliance. I really like that no BS response to things. And I did a deep dive down the rabbit hole for all of these candidates. And what I saw about Azarloza is that she was truly visible in the communities. She talked a lot about being in the rooms and being on the fields, and I really saw that all over. She was at games, she was at celebrations, she was at graduations, she was in there, she was in the tug of war after the game, you know. And I think that infusion of energy and commitment and attention in our community would be incredibly welcomed. She also really talked about changing trajectories and aligning the schools so that it becomes seamless from elementary to JFK in the high school. And I think that's something that we desperately need. And I really appreciated that she identified that. And she also stated her commitment to communication. And she said, you know, I never want a board member to find out anything important at a checkout line. And I know that survey was small, but I did look at those bar graphs, and I was impressed by what, you know, in that small sample size, did look like a level of enthusiasm. And I've had constituents reach out to me with great enthusiasm for her. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Mahoney?
I'm very grateful to the three candidates for their willingness to serve as superintendent of Northampton Public Schools, and would welcome the opportunity to work with Tom, Annie, or Bethany. They each bring different strengths, and I feel strongly that any one of them would be an excellent leader. Tom Dennehy's experience with ACEs really resonated. Annie Azarloza's preparation and commitment to diverse learners was clearly evident. Bethany Silver's compassion and data inference skills are a powerful combination. So thanks, Bethany, Annie, and Tom, for making our decision such a difficult one. Because of my work with special education families across the state, I empathize with that fierce mama bear instinct when it comes to our children. And the school committee heard from families who share that feeling, both in emails and in the survey. We also heard from thoughtful NPS teachers and staff, and we value their insight. When any one of us is in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, we make mistakes. The key is to reflect, ask for grace, and do better next time. As a school committee member, I was elected to represent Northampton students, staff, and caregivers. And there are no wrong choices here. If this were MCAS, I would choose all of the above. In the final analysis, it came down to a very difficult decision between Annie Ajaloza and Bethany Silver for me. And I wish we had funding for both the superintendent and assistant superintendent, as they would be a terrific team. However, since I can only select one, I vote for Annie Ajaloza. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Stein.
Just want to thank everybody that was on the search committee and thank the chair of the search committee for producing the candidate pool that we were able to interview with and learn more about and discuss tonight. I know it was a lot of work for all the volunteers on that and the members of this body that were on it. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the time my colleagues have put into this process. It's one of our main responsibilities, and I feel like everyone's taken it really seriously. So I want to recognize that. I've been trying to think a lot after, when we got the packets, we looked at the candidates, the interviews, really trying to think about who would best serve the needs of the district today and in the years to come. You can make all sorts of arguments. I think all three candidates have a lot to offer in different ways, right? And I think deciding which one is each individually is our strongest really depends on how you see the challenges of the district and what you see as the experience, skill set, and approach to solve those problems. And I just want to recognize that many people can have different opinions that are equally valid and arguable, right? So I'm hearing a lot of thoughtful rationales for candidates from my colleagues. So I just want to acknowledge that too. When I was thinking about what the district needs, it's from my experience of being on the committee and looking at things. And I was struck by a lot in the interview questions. And I'm trying to think about what is the reality that they're entering, right? And be really clear about that reality and what skill sets would best serve a person entering that reality. I was really struck, especially in the budgeting questions, about all the things that they cut that we haven't had for a long time. I got the sense that none of them are in a district as hamstrung as ours. Even the idea of having a data dashboard, which we would never have the money to build or pay licensing for. I mean, the amount of things that were discussed that would be utilized are frankly a pipe dream for us at this point. And no amount of enthusiasm makes up for a lack of resources. So with that perspective, I try to think, what are the things, it's okay to say we have to be in compliance, but when you literally don't have the resources to be in compliance, how do you make decisions? And I think that's really hard. And how do you build systems and changes over time that could get us there? I think the largest challenge we have in the district is related to our special education, service delivery, trust, transparency. I was heartened by the time that all of the interviewees, but particularly Dr. Silver and Dr. Danahy took to say what they thought of the case report. I thought they had insightful comments regarding those limitations. But, I don't know how you build an MTSS system without interventionists. I don't know how you comply with IEPs without the providers of service minutes. I don't know how you do that. I think the individual with the skill set most closely aligned with the expertise I think we need is probably Dr. Danahy, and I would support him as my top choice. I think that the fact that he picked up on the over-reliance of paraeducators and its structural sort of weight in service delivery in the case report, which has come out in numerous conversations we've had as a district, but it's just looking at it gave me some confidence that he has some ideas about how we might realign the way we deliver services. He talked about a co-teaching model. He talked about a number of things that I think could significantly shift us away from the sort of state we've been in between a failed implementation of a WINS model to something else that's sort of just responding to needs and written reports. So for those reasons, I think he would be the person to help us do that. Thank you. Oh, sorry. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I was also heartened by his emphasis on communication and his emphasis on listening. We have had a lot of confident leaders that aren't able to listen and aren't able to take that listening to heart and reflect. And the examples he gave regarding that I found to be beneficial for our district. Thanks.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet?
Right? Like,
What's that?
time where
Yes, no one
No, I can go.
needs to, but
Yeah, no, I'll
you're
go.
welcome to.
I resonate with a lot of what my colleagues are saying, and definitely the appreciation for everybody's engagement in this process, from the community to the ad hoc committee and to the candidates themselves, who gave significant amount of time and energy into applying. And I think we have really good choices. I agree with that. I feel like any one of these would bring new and needed energy to our district. I found Bethany Silver to be extremely thoughtful, and I deeply appreciated her careful answers to every one of our many questions. I loved her commitment to accessible language and her avoidance of jargon, and how that translates to her vision of inclusivity. I loved her example of how she addressed concerns of ELL families to have their children in their neighborhood schools. I found that compelling. Her approach to rolling out a new district trans supportive policy demonstrated her ability to unite a community with disparate beliefs. Her advanced degree in special education and understanding how monitoring through data can help ensure compliance would help our school community immensely. And yet, Annie Azarloza is my top choice. I've spent, as I know my colleagues have as well, a lot of time. I have read beyond the materials we got. I have read articles and reports about her work. I've listened to interviews about her and with her throughout her career. And I've reviewed her strong letters of recommendation from her past and her current school board chair. I, like all of us, have gotten input from caregivers, from educators, and of course via the survey that we put out this week, and saw a lot of alignment with my own assessment about Ms. Azarloza's strengths and ability to lead with compassion, integrity, and vision. And I really heard her unwavering commitment to listening deeply to all members of the school and the wider community, and as well ensuring that all students are supported in reaching their full potential. I also was quite moved by her desire to become a member of the community herself, and I think that speaks volumes about her level of commitment to this work. Her examples of how she communicates with all school community members, including when delivering challenging news, were compelling to me. Her zero-based approach to budgeting shows critical thinking. Do we have a time limit? No. Okay. The critical thinking we need about how best to use our financial resources. I heard her speak to guiding that process with an educational advisory council that's open to everyone working in the schools who interfaces with our children, teachers, of course, but recognizing that everyone from paras to custodians have their own unique and valuable perspectives as well. I think that says a volume about her, it says volumes about her values and her approach. Meeting directly and regularly with students and also with families, as she spoke to, demonstrates the kind of inclusivity, trust building, and engagement that I think this district values highly. The way she described her work to increase equity for both students and educators of color was grounded and nuanced. The description she had of her approach to what she called the epidemic of bullying in Worcester was thoughtful, also measured, and it addressed the needs of both those being bullied and those who are bullying. I found her understanding of the findings of the case report insightful. And I found that she gave specific examples to almost all of our many layered questions, and I was quite inspired and hopeful. And I would be thrilled to work with her as our new superintendent.
Thank you. Else like to share thoughts? I'm happy to, but, or we can go to vote. Okay, so I thought that these were three exceptionally strong candidates, and I would be very honored to work with any of them. For Tom Dennehy, I really appreciated his interest in team building, his focus on professional development, and ensuring that different perspectives are incorporated, and that support for all should be differentiated, whether for students or for educators. And also in building trust and relationships within schools and the district, and also in the community. And I really appreciated that he was thinking about how to create balance with technology and teach students how to use AI critically and ethically. And I liked his interest in delving into messy problems. For Bethany Silver, I also really appreciated her clear interest in and comfort with making data-informed decisions. I also like that she said she did not like acronyms and then followed throughout the entire interview with expanding or explaining any acronym that she or someone else used, which was a lovely inclusive touch and showed her, walking that talk. And I also appreciated her budget experience and interest in transparency with the school budget, as well as her obvious experience with technology. And it was clear to me that she really enjoys being in classrooms and seeing the learning and the educators work firsthand in the classroom. For Annie Azarloza, I really appreciate her energy, and she is clearly someone who relishes immersing herself in a community and understanding all aspects of a district and reworking or building what is needed for all learners. I also appreciated her interest in training and restorative practices and how she has built trust with caregivers, especially those of students, caregivers of students with special needs, by clear and dependable follow-through, which is how she said that she had built that trust. And the 100-day plan that she provided us, I thought was a really thoughtful roadmap to get her not only up and running in the district, but also to build her goals that she would be evaluated on. And something that I think is really important for the school committee that we need to work on, and we haven't had really in the past, is I feel like we could work with her to help us create goals as a school committee, which is something that we are meant to do together. So I was very inspired by her, and as others have said, others also have, were very clearly very inspired by her, and I thought that she could bring some really wonderful energy to our district. So again, I thought that these were three really exceptional candidates, and I would be happy to work with any of them, but she would be my choice.
Go ahead.
So I felt such a sense of reassurance and relief with the quality of candidates that we were able to attract, regardless of where they came from. And I really appreciated the opportunity to learn about them, to spend a little bit of time hearing their thoughts, to review their histories, their experiences, to hear from the community about them. Each one, and again, I want to echo everything that my colleagues have shared, I would feel honored to work with. I particularly appreciated Dr. Dennehy's very steadying presence, his experience, just someone who I really feel that we as a district could learn a lot from. I appreciated Dr. Silver's ability to give very specific, thoughtful, clear examples to each question that we asked, that gave me a real sense of how she might address our problems, as well as our successes. I appreciated her deep kindness, that I think is something that we need a little bit more of in our district, in our community, in our body. And Miss Azarloza ultimately rose to the top for me for the simple reason that she, at this point in time, is the type of dynamic leader who I believe we need to restore trust and transparency to the district, to this community. Someone who will listen, someone who will engage, someone who will become a part of our community and gather folks around her. And as Member Reese stated, the survey was a small portion, but through that survey, I saw that this candidate has already begun to gather community around her. I've heard from caregivers, I've heard from educators, I've heard from administration. Member Jewell mentioned union leadership is supporting Ms. Azarloza, and we are part of a community. We go through this together. We're not always going to agree, but someone who has the ability to build, to maintain community is someone who I would like to invite into this space to be with us as we succeed, but also be with us as we experience challenge and can bring us together to work more effectively in doing so. So she also has my backing. Thank you.
So, interviewing is such a tricky thing, and again, I also just want to thank everybody, and in particular, Member Montgomery Tomaclo for leading the search process. I know it was many, many hours, and I know Member Sanders Sullivan was also on the committee, so thank you for that. And I certainly, I think, look to them too, because they have the most information, more information than any of us have about these candidates. You know, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people in my life, and I know that while I trust my instincts, there's only so much you know after you interview somebody. And it's always a risk, and this is a very important position at a very important time in our community. I struggled a bit with this up until, you know, today, actually. I saw Dr. Silver at both the meet and greet and in the interviews. And I really was very moved by the way she interviewed the night before last. And I thought she brought some really unique qualities that were different than any of the other candidates. And what most impressed me about her, about Dr. Silver, and I agree with Robbie on this, that she's so incredibly substantive. She really talked with a great deal of detail about in answering the questions, with a lot of concreteness in her answers, a lot of her data-based approach really came through. She's clearly a brilliant educator and somebody who is humble and somebody who knows how to listen. And I was very impressed with her in the interview. And I experienced her functioning differently in the meet and greet. It was a bit of a different experience meeting her in those two settings, which I reflected on. I'm going to support Dr. Dennehy. I think that he really has a great deal of experience. I really liked his appreciation for complexity and nuance. He brought that up a lot in his answers. I liked that he had a developmental perspective. He thought differently. It's very important to me, right? Like that an elementary school student is different from a middle school student or a high school student. And I think that he thinks very intentionally about those differences, and that came through in his answers. I think he understands equity versus equality. I think he has a good sense of humor. He presents well. I think he's a good communicator. He's flexible. And I really got the sense that he cares for each member of our school system. So he's my top choice. Thank you.
you. Okay, I think everyone has spoken. Any further deliberation?
I have one quick question for Member Jewel. It's actually a constituent question. They wanted to know if, like, the NACE leadership did a poll of the members, and is that where this, how did they decide who to support?
I don't know. I don't know if we can ask them here. I did talk to the new president.
We can't quite hear.
Oh, sorry. I don't know how, there wasn't a poll from what I know, but they had their annual meeting on Wednesday and having conversations then, and I talked to our new president of the union, Kate Fontaine, who gave a lot of the information.
President-elect.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes, Member Stein?
Yeah, I had some, I have a question from my colleagues who have Dr. Anzarul as their top choice. Or actually, no, she will be, my apologies. I'm remembering resumes differently here. But my question really is, she encouraged us the other night to look at this report that was released as part of our consideration. I spent some time with it. I'm wondering what, those of you who had her as your first choice, did you spend some time with that report and sort of, I guess, like what stood out to you, how you grappled with some of the things in there? And I ask you because we've had a difficult leadership history here, and I wonder what you make of the report and the things that are in it, both the accusations and the findings, and wondering how that informed your deliberations. Yeah.
I can share a little bit. I don't have all my notes here. I just have this little notebook. But a big part of it was looking at the demographics of the community that she was living in, and recognizing that she was incredibly transparent about it. She didn't want to hide anything from us. There may be other information coming forth. And for me, it feels really important to have a leader who is going to advocate for students, and who is willing to put their job on the line at times. And I know that feels really scary. And I'm looking for someone who is not only going to be transparent about their past, and inviting us to, I'm sure if she was here, we could ask her a ton of questions about it, and we can, fortunately, from the process. And I think ultimately, my summation of those pages and trying to make sense of legalese and stuff is that she wasn't, what is the word? This is my brain. She wasn't found to be. This is totally slipped my brain. Sorry. My brain is not functioning right now.
I think it was in violation of a certain number of
Thank you.
policies listed in the.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. She wasn't in violation. And so I think every superintendent is going to have things that come forth, but it was looking at, was she laundering money? Was she? No, it was more about centering the students.
Anyone? You posed the question, so, okay.
I think for me, the report is why I'm a no. I have never in my career had 1,000 pages written about me to assess my behavior. And the part that I thought the report was about, which was centering students, that was solved easily. The part that concerned me is her relationship with her peers. And we already have experience with a chief administrator who can be seen as bullying, who can be seen as playing favorites, who can be seen as not collaborative, who can be seen as hiding information from school committee. And the parts, because I didn't have time to read it, but the parts that I read concerned me in those aspects. And I'm not willing. People can get second chances, but this isn't a job for us to give people second chances for. We get one shot to do this. This is the most important vote we will take this term. And for me, I don't want someone that, rightly or wrongly, has a scandal attached to them, is currently in litigation, and has traits that were outlined that that we see in our current chief executive that we do not like.
Anyone else like to weigh in?
I'm thinking about it.
Member Reese?
I also didn't have time to read 1,000 pages, but I did read summaries of it, and it appeared to me that she was largely, almost completely exonerated. And I thought it was incredibly brave of her. I mean, for me, in some ways, this strengthens her candidacy because she has been fighting to have this report released, and that it's really important that she wants everybody to know what happened. And I do see it as her defending her students in a difficult situation with some difficult colleagues, and it was incredibly challenging. So for me, it allows me to see at least some of the ways in which she is brave and strong.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Member Reese said and add to that. One of her statements during the interview that I found really moving was the idea and the role of being able to reflect in leadership and to grow from experience. And so, ultimately, we'll see who we get, but all of this information is out in the open, and now it's time to have the conversations with her. She stated that she would meet one-on-one with each school committee member, so there's a clear intention there to develop relationships with us. And then I think it's on us to reciprocate and on us to really hold that space of the governance board that supports the superintendent by discussing some of our concerns and seeing how she responds to that. So to me, her releasing this information or her making us aware of this information is the beginning of a relationship. She's putting out what has a challenging part of her history, and we all have challenging parts of our history. She's been honest about it. And
Point of order. Point of order.
Okay, we're going to recess for 5 minutes.
You didn't even read it.
Okay, we are back from recess, and Member Bartoli has the floor.
So, as I was saying, by presenting us with the report, Ms. Azarloza, in my opinion, has begun a conversation, and the question is how are we going to respond to that conversation? How are we going to support her as, ultimately the folks who are the management of this district? And if we see challenges that she's experiencing, how do we show up and work through those with her? And so for this reason, I think this type of transparency to me indicates a candidate who is willing to have a conversation about their weaknesses and to reflect, and that is the type of leader that I want for our district. Thank you.
Anyone else want to respond to the question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my analysis is that, yes, she was cleared of any illegal or policy violations, and that she may have made mistakes. There definitely was disagreement, but that's true of any leader. We just know about it because this was, became a contentious situation. And, I certainly read at least one article about one of the other candidates that was like, yeah, there's deep disagreement with any leader when things are, when there are differences of opinions that are strong. And clearly there were in that situation. And I do, I think her advocacy for changing the policies that clearly seemed incredibly unethical and harmful was important. And a sign of a strong leader.
Okay, anyone else like to respond? Question? No? Okay. Can we move forward?
But I want to just offer my perspective on what I read.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to try to be brief, but essentially what I want to sort of express to my colleagues is that there are often investigations that are conducted that don't find people responsible. We've had a number here, and I'm sure many folks here would. There's a difference between responsible for violating a policy and things that are problematic. What troubled me that I saw, and again, I didn't hear reflection on what was learned in the interview. I hear a lot of people saying this is evidence of reflection. I didn't hear that.
A point of personal privilege, that's not what I said. I said that this is a leader who has the capacity to reflect.
I didn't
this is
say
the
it was
beginning
you.
of a conversation.
I didn't say it was you.
Oh, pardon me.
Okay. And we're choosing whether or not to begin a conversation with someone. But my point is that for many years, this district had a fortress culture mentality in which people circled the wagons, information was tightly controlled, nothing was let out. And what I saw that troubled me in this report was that tendency to police and over-police how administrators could or could not engage with the school committee, to have a cabinet and police sort of loyalties on a cabinet, potentially sending people off. These are accusations, right? I don't know what happened, but the things that I saw in the report troubled me based on the experiences of this district. And as someone that's been on the committee for a while, I can tell you that if anything goes wrong that is similar to what's in this report, you're going to hear about it endlessly for a long time. And you're going to have to defend the fact that you're saying you read the report tonight, you knew about it, but you had reason to believe these things should not be worried about. And you have the votes. It's going to go that way. One of the recommendations from our attorney, right, which is a general recommendation, it's not privileged, in my opinion, is that we actually have to work on how we're going to decide communication with the superintendent. And we're going to have to work really hard on that. And I'm hoping that there will be a balance from my colleagues between trusting the expert and establishing what our expectations are that has eluded the school committee for many years. So I have those reservations. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping this conversation's a footnote that we don't ever have to revisit. But I am marking it, given the history that we have had as a district, and I am concerned about the return of a fortress mentality. for information sharing, for transparency, for communication with the school committee. And the things in the report that trouble me are those things. And I also just find it interesting that there's a lot of lauding for this act, and we have another candidate in front of us who was a whistleblower who sent someone to prison for embezzlement when no one else would stand up. And that level of courage and commitment and fortitude is extremely difficult to do, especially in a small town. And I haven't heard anything regarding what that says about a leader. And I think we're kind of spinning on what is and is not in this report and how or how not we should view it. But that's it. Thank you.
Anyone who's not spoken yet? Okay, I'll go to Member Montgomery Tomoko and then Member Martin.
These will be my last words on this. This is from the report. Retaliation. It is undisputed that Azar Loza disallowed Redacted continued ability to attend meetings because Azar Loza felt she could no longer trust Redacted due to the fact that she had gone to Redacted and disclosed concerns about the discussion with Azar Loza and the information Azar Loza asked them not to tell anyone. Azar Loza felt that they should have instead gone to Azar Loza. Azar Loza felt that meetings entailed confidential and evolving information, and Azar Loza had lost trust in them. Azar Loza explained her concerns that they were leapfrogging Azar Loza and going to Redacted caused problems because Azar Loza could not defend herself, and this impacted Redacted's trust in Azar Loza. Redacted discussed the fact that Azar Loza had disallowed Redacted ability to attend meetings and their concern that they had been denied opportunity. The Redacted voiced his viewpoint that removing that person from their ability to attend cabinet meetings was inappropriate. Azar Loza explained that her perspective policy required Redacted to go to Azar Loza as superintendent with concerns rather than bypass Azar Loza to speak directly with the Redacted chair. It is undisputed that Redacted did and do feel that Azar Loza retaliated against them. I believe the evidence supports the conclusion that Redacted were reasonable to feel that Redacted were retaliated against for protected activity. The fact that Redacted went to a school committee member before going to Azar Loza, even assuming this meeting was a violation of district policy, does not translate into them being untrustworthy to the point that removal from cabinet meetings was necessary. My job as school committee member is to work with whoever the superintendent is. I will always put my feelings aside, but I implore my colleagues to think critically about who we choose to lead us for the next 3 years.
Member Martin?
I think none of us have been without concern about this, right? It's been in the news. Ms. Azar Loza brought it up herself, right? So I think certainly, you heard me talk about the time that I spent to review the report and many, many interpretations of it. We can't really know. What I heard from people that I talked to was that she is in fact, in that specific instance, what I heard and recall at least was that that certainly wasn't her intent, and that she did reflect on that. I don't think that we are going in without serious consideration of this, and we just have a difference of opinion of this. And I understand, this is a very high-stakes decision, and we all want what's best for our district, and we all care very much. And, I understand the concern, and my concerns were allayed. I get yours weren't. We were going to have to, I trust that, yes, we have the votes. It looks like it's going a certain way, unless somebody has a change of heart, which is always allowed. We will have to work to hold accountability and build relationships and make sure that this person serves, our community and our students well. And that's my commitment.
Okay, any further discussion? Reminder of the motion, which is that the school committee proceed to select a superintendent of schools from the final candidates. Annie Azarloza, Thomas Dennehy, and Bethany Silver pursuant to the voting procedure adopted by the school committee, and further move that upon completion of this process and a determination of majority choice, that the school committee offer the position of superintendent of schools to the selected candidate contingent upon their successful completion of a background check and the negotiation and execution of an employment agreement acceptable to the school committee. So that is the motion.
You making that motion?
It's already been made, it's on the floor. Yeah, the motion's on the floor. I was just reiterating it.
Is
because
it,
it's
can I
been a
still
while.
say something?
Yes.
I guess, and we, this is a public deliberation, and we all want to be very respectful of all the three candidates who really put themselves out there and worked very hard and gave us a lot of their time and attention. And I guess I'm not feeling satisfied by some of the thinking of those of you who would like to select Annie Azarloza. We've discussed how much controversy there's been around this candidate and the potential risk, right, that we would take. And I guess I'm a little perplexed about, given that things have been so very difficult in our district and so contentious, why wouldn't we give our community some grace and select another extremely qualified candidate who doesn't come to us right now at this point in time with so much baggage? What is it that is so incredibly convincing? Right? We all agreed we had three very good candidates. We all agreed we had three very qualified candidates. And I'm not averse to taking risks, but I don't want to take that kind of risk here, again, because we just don't know, right? I'm not judging her, but why do you feel compelled to take such a risk in the middle of a situation that is already so difficult here in our city when we have other really good choices? And I guess that's my question.
Rhetorical? Or do you
No.
want an answer? I can give it a shot. I think it's a really good question. I think we are at an incredibly fragile moment. And I think, as has been said, every single candidate is a risk. And I think with Annie Azarloza, we know what we're getting to a certain degree, and it has been explored, and she has been exonerated. And any of these candidates could run into something at some point. You don't know. We don't know with any of them. So why not go with the one who whoever, we each, some of us feel enthusiastic about, and who our community has expressed connection with and enthusiasm for.
Any further discussion? Anyone who hasn't spoken in a while? Okay, I thought we did final thoughts.
I was just going to answer the question.
Okay.
I agree. I worry about that same calculation. And again, I don't think if we're comparing apples to apples, what we may or may not know about all the candidates is the same. I think that the risk, a lot of times when I do certain contracts at work, right, part of it is risk assessment. if I'm doing risk assessment on what I know about these three candidates, there's one outlier. And it is, to me, perplexing, given the other two candidates that are available to us, why we would take that risk. As many people that are excited are also potentially concerned. Heard from a lot of them too. So it's not a universal sentiment. But as Member Montgomery Tomaclo said, you know, we will work with whoever is selected. But I just want to reiterate again that balance between trusting the experts and oversight. We have failed every term I've been on this committee at having a meaningful evaluation process and having any meaningful oversight or a shared understanding about how we manage someone as a collective body. And so that ups the risk potentially in this choice as well. And I would really like to be proven wrong that the risk didn't pan out. But, you know, for posterity, these are the things you're going to hear if they do go wrong from the community.
Any further discussion? Okay, so I reiterated the motion before. Everyone's still clear on it? So again, the process that we'd agreed upon was we will call the roll, and each member will state the name aloud of one candidate that is their choice.
Ready?
Yes, yes.
Member Montgomery Tomaclo.
Danahy.
Member Stein.
Dr. Dennehy.
Member Martin.
Azarosa, oh dear, you know who I mean.
Member Mahoney.
Azarloza?
Member Reese.
Azarloza.
Member Jewell.
Azarloza.
Member Sanders Sullivan.
Dr. Silver?
Mayor Shara.
Azarloza?
Member Bartoli.
Ms. Azarloza.
Is that everybody?
Member Weisenfreund.
You guys are incompetent.
Dr.
You
Danahy.
risk children's lives, not your own. You risk other people's children's lives, not your own.
And who else?
2, 3, 4, 5. Annie Azarloza received 6 votes.
Member Weisenfreund hasn't voted.
Oh,
I thought, did you just know?
Dr. Danahy.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
I heard
sorry,
your
I
vote,
didn't
yeah.
hear.
okay, sorry.
Do you have 10,
I have 10. I have
right? Yeah.
6 for Annie Azarloza, 3 for Dr. Danahy, and 1 for Bethany Silver.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So it wins for Annie Azarloza, who is the choice. So at this point, hold on, let me put my agenda back up. Next would be deliberation and vote to authorize the mayor as the chair to enter into negotiations with the chosen superintendent candidate. Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who did make a motion?
It was Member Bartoli, seconded by Member Mahoney.
Okay.
Yep, Member Stein, deliberation?
Yes, just a sort of a procedural question. So will we vote now in open session to authorize that, and then we
And
go to
we'll go
exec,
into
and we don't
executive.
come back?
And we don't come back. We'll go
Okay.
into executive session to discuss the contract,
Great, thank
the
you.
terms, and then we will adjourn from there.
I have a question as well.
Yes.
Did we already include the language that Layla wanted to in terms of contingent on a background check and?
That was in the motion.
That was in the original motion, okay, thank you.
Which I think we will then reiterate later as well. Yeah. Any further discussion on authorizing the mayor to enter into negotiations? Nope. Roll call, please.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Member Mahoney?
Yes.
Member Reese?
Yes.
Member Jewell?
Yep.
Member Sanders Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Shara?
Yes.
Member Bartoli?
Yes.
Member Weisenfreund?
Yes.
Member Montgomery Tomaclo?
Yes.
Okay, and next step is to make a motion to enter into executive session. And,
I can do this.
okay,
Right in front of me.
awesome.
I'd like to make a motion pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Motion's been made by Member Jewell, seconded by
Second.
Member Montgomery Tomaclo. So we will roll call to enter executive session, and we will adjourn in executive session and not come back into open session. So thank you, everyone who's here tonight. Roll call, please, on entering executive session.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Member Mahoney?
Yes.
Member Reese?
Yes.
Member Jewell?
Yep.
Member Sainer Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Shara?
Yes.
Member Bartoli?
Yes.
Member Weisenfreund?
Yes.
Member Montgomery Tomaclo?
Yes.
Member Stein?
Yes. I think you already got me, but I'll say yes again.
Okay, again, thank you. We are now going to go into executive session.